Namibia has revoked visa exemptions for over 30 countries, including the US and other European countries. The Namibian government has resolved to introduce entry visa requirements for countries that have not reciprocated its visa exemption gestures. Citizens from over 30 countries will no longer enjoy visa-free access to Namibia if their nations fail to reciprocate visa exemption agreements. The proposal, submitted by the Minister of Home Affairs, Immigration, Safety and Security, has been approved by the cabinet recently. In today's eye-opening video, you will be astounded by how Namibia were able to pull such a huge hit that even affects the Americans, European, Britain. Stay tuned till the end. The swift move by the Namibian government to deny visa-free admission to 31 nations runs the risk of reversing the gains gained in the nation's tourist rebound, with the price-sensitive European markets that sustain the industry likely to be hardest hit. Citing a lack of reciprocity, the Ministry of Home Affairs, Immigration, Safety and Security (MAIS) said on May 24th that Namibia's cabinet has approved the withdrawal of the nations off the list of nations free from visa requirements. These nations include most of Namibia's significant international tourism source markets. According to the MAIS statement, citizens of the impacted nations would be granted visas upon arrival, subject to a relevant charge and an online visa application, even though the implementation date has not yet been determined. Travelers from at least 31 countries, the majority of which are in Europe, would be subject to visa restrictions as of April 1st, 2025, the government has stated. In reaction to these nations' refusal to relax their visa restrictions for Namibian nationals, Namibia's cabinet made the decision. Among the impacted nations are well-known nations like the US, France, Germany, Britain, Canada, and Italy. Belgian, Swiss, Dutch, Japanese, Norwegian, Austrian, Portuguese, Swedish, Spanish, Danish, Irish, Finnish, Ukrainian, and Armenian nations are all included on the list. The following 31 nations are impacted by this provision since they do not reciprocally waive visas for Namibian tourists: Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Liechtenstein, Luxembourg, Moldova, Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Japan, Austria, Azerbaijan, Belgium, Belarus, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, and Uzbekistan. Travelers from these 31 nations will now have to pay 1,600 Namibian dollars, about $90 for a visa upon arrival, according to Namibia's Deputy Minister of Home Affairs and Immigration Lucia Witbooi, who confirmed on July 17th that the new visa regime will go into effect on April 1st, 2025. Namibia claims that its relationship with these nations has been one-sided because it had exempted their travelers from visa restrictions, but they did not reciprocate. The government's move has been strongly opposed by the Federation of Namibian Tourism Associations, FNATA, which is worried that the time-consuming application and payment process for visas may discourage travelers. The new visa policy won't have any significant negative impact on travel, according to Tourism Minister Pohamba Sherfeta, despite these worries. 1,600 Namibian dollars, approximately $88 for citizens of non-African Union countries. 1,200 Namibian dollars, $67 for nationals of African Union member states who meet the requirements to obtain a visa on arrival. The Minister of Information, Communication and Technology, Emma Theophilus, stated yesterday that these visa fees will be subject to annual revision according to exchange rates. Gita Pietzold, the CEO of the Hospitality Association of Namibia, HAN, told Tourism Update that the decision contradicts the government's and the private sector's major efforts to portray Namibia as a friendly, open, and easily accessible destination for investors and tourists. Pietzold stated, "The Namibian tourism private sector and the MAIS have been working together for a number of years in a coordinated program to increase Namibia's appeal to tourists and potential investors by relaxing Namibia's visa regime, introducing visas on arrival for certain countries, and expanding the list of countries exempt from visa requirements. The government implemented a number of progressive initiatives to increase visitor numbers under previous President Hage Geingob, who passed away in February of this year while still in office. These included expanding visas on arrival at border posts and introducing a remote work visa." According to Pietzold, This open attitude is largely responsible for Namibia's recovery to pre-COVID arrival levels. The fact that European markets, on which Namibia's tourism industry depends heavily, are so heavily represented on the list of impacted nations is very concerning. In April 2024, the most recent HAN figures show that 38% of occupancies were in the German-speaking nations of Austria, Germany, and Switzerland, while 22% of all stays were in other European countries. We are worried that this visa requirement and the cost of the proposed visas may result in fewer mid-range tourists, particularly from our important European markets who are frequently more cost-sensitive than others, particularly when they are traveling in the family groups that we have been promoting, Petzold said. Petzold expressed concern about the effect on Namibia's competitiveness and on new tourism businesses, given that other African nations including Kenya, Rwanda, Mozambique, and Malawi have made liberalizing their visa policies a top priority. Like water, the majority of international travel flows where there is the least opposition. We are fearful that a noteworthy percentage of our low to middle market tourism sector, increasingly served by emerging and startup enterprises, might now potentially be lost to nations with similar offerings, such as South Africa, or to other SADC countries, as well as places like Kenya. According to Petzold, Namibia's organized tourist industry has begun negotiating with the appropriate authorities in an effort to influence the new visa's implementation and lessen any potential negative effects. In Namibia, tourism is important for employment, particularly in rural areas, as well as for economic growth and foreign exchange revenues. In order to increase tourism, we are eager to maintain the perception of our nation as being open and accessible, she said. This new visa policy comes after it was discovered that, in 2023, the European Union denied Schengen permits to a third of African applicants. Roughly 670,000 out of 2.5 million applications that Africans denied visa applications made up about 41% of the money the EU collected from immigration fees worldwide in 2023. Namibia's action demonstrates the nation's re-examination of its visa regulations to guarantee fair treatment of its nationals. Namibia's tourism satellite account states that in 2022, the industry accounted for 7.9% of all jobs and 6.9% of the nation's GDP. Nevertheless, the plan has drawn considerable opposition from Namibia's Economic Policy Research Association, EPRA, which has urged the government to engage in constructive dialogue with non-visa reciprocating countries to resolve underlying issues. By working together to address concerns and fostering a more cooperative approach, Namibia can protect its vital tourism sector and maintain its strong ties with key source markets. Eben de Klerk, a member of the EPRA's management committee, stated that the organization strongly urges government to adopt a pro-business, best practice, evidence-based approach when it comes to policy formulation and implementation. 91% of 500 businesses surveyed by EPRA said they thought the limitations would hurt the tourism sector. 87% said they would hurt the economy overall, and 80% said they would make unemployment worse. De Klerk said the government had not taken into account the legitimate explanations for other nations' lack of reciprocity with regard to visas. Namibian nationals were no longer granted visa-free entry into Canada in 2012 due to an excessively high volume of asylum petitions. Namibia had the highest immigration violation rate of all African countries, with 78% in 2011. 71% of travelers from Namibia made asylum claims in 2011, de Klerk pointed out. In July 2023, the UK government revoked visa-free access for the same reason. In a press release, the Southern African Development Community, SADC, Business Council Tourism Alliance, which is made up of leading private sector organizations from throughout the region, urged Namibia's government to re-evaluate the policy because it may negatively affect a number of Namibian economic sectors that depend heavily on foreign tourists, such as tourism, hospitality, transportation, and retail. The whole value chain of tourism may suffer from a restricted visa policy. Natalia Rosa, the Alliance's project lead, stated that it restricts overall economic growth and development by impeding not only leisure travel, but also corporate travel, conferences, events, education, and trade. The Alliance called the move a puzzling U-turn, pointing out that Namibia was among the first nations to implement a remote working visa. The proposed policy also seemed to go against Namibia Airports Company's recently introduced Air Connect Namibia Air Access strategy, which aims to increase international flights and connectivity. Rosa went on to say that data from all throughout Africa, including Rwandan and Zambian success stories, shows that easing visa requirements greatly increases travel, foreign investment, and economic growth in general. To maximize the advantages of more flight alternatives and draw in more tourists, visa regulations must be in line with the Air Access Plan. Rwanda, which has had tremendous growth in its MICE tourism industry as a result of visa liberalization and infrastructure investment, is a good example Namibia might follow, according to Rosa. Rosa recommended that Namibia look at other options such introducing more effective visa processing technologies, such as e-visas, targeted visa waivers for particular groups, or improved border security. Rosa stated that in order to promote longer stays, boost economic expenditure, and quicken the tourism industry's recovery, all barriers to entry for international visitors must be critically examined and addressed. Despite the great criticism from neighboring countries, Namibia vehemently stands on their policy on visa restriction. This is one of the most African countries that is becoming more and more powerful as days goes by. Fighting for their freedom will never stop till it is a mission accomplished. If you find this video interesting, kindly hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell so that you will be notified when we upload a new video. Thanks for watching.